Today on XPlay, Master Chief plays a brutal game of Slayer against the Bungie development team in our look at the secret history of Halo 2's creation. And we take a deeper look at Alan Wake 2. We can't wait to get excommunicated by a bunch of alien prophets. It's game time.
Hello and welcome to XPlay.
The release of Halo 2 in 2004 was a cultural event.
It was the birth of Xbox Live's relevance.
It broke sales records.
And it brought gamers together to say with one voice, wait, that's it? When we all finish the end of the campaign?
But did you know what a shit show it was behind the scenes? You will after this episode.
Here is part one of the secretish history of Halo 2.
The development of Halo 2 would be racked with turmoil and chaos from the start. Bungie would be defeated by an unwinnable technology battle, lose one of their founders entirely, and watch another crushed by the weight of the franchise. This is the game that broke the spirit of a game studio. But hey, it's arguably the best one. Strap in, Space Marine, we're in for some chop. Bungie released Halo Combat Evolved in November of 2001 as a launch title for the original Xbox. The game had survived massive cuts to its campaign right before release, and many other features had barely avoided the chopping block, including multiplayer itself, thanks to the all-consuming dedication of the development team. Halo sales were limited by the number of Xboxes out in the wild, but while Halo's numbers might seem modest compared to a big PS2 hit, it was clear Master Chief could, and was, selling consoles. Halo was the breakout hit of Microsoft's console, the only breakout hit, which meant they needed a sequel. Plenty of ideas that had gone unused in the first Halo were plastered on whiteboards and stored on hard drives in the Bungie offices. The original idea was to leverage this stored up creativity and knock out a sequel in a much less painful manner than Halo Combat Evolved. And while the sequel was pretty much ordained in the stars after Master Chief became the Xbox mascot, sequels weren't really much to the liking of Bungie as a studio or co-founder and creative lead, Jason Jones. But despite not liking sequels, Jason Jones had a lot of ideas for this one. He wanted to embrace operatic storytelling and expand the gameplay. But he also thought he owed the team a sequel to make up for how grueling and cruel the final crunch of Halo Combat Evolved had been. So many ideas and features had to be cut, it was time to really show what they could do in the sequel. Jason was the beating heart of the Bungie fatal flaw to never be satisfied, to always push through to do something you thought was impossible, and he wanted Halo 2 to be bigger and better. It was going to knock off socks. Unfortunately, the different factions within the Halo team all had completely different priorities. Joe Staten, among others, focused in on the campaign and championed the idea of playing as one of the Covenant. This playable alien was called the Dervish. He was a disgraced elite, a venerated Covenant soldier who was stripped of his status for losing the Halo ring to the humans. Across the aisle, multiplayer was going to blow people away. The idea was to create a large battlefield mode with tons of players and AI, not dissimilar to Halo 5's Warzone. Max Hoberman, a designer who had previously worked on Oni and had handled community manager duties on Halo 1, among many other roles, fought to keep the intimate multiplayer offering from that first Halo title as a part of the franchise. And what happens when you raise your hand and speak up? You get extra work. He would take over as the lead designer for the party game side of multiplayer. And yes, the term party game is in quotes, and the tone you're hearing is smug dismissal from the primary multiplayer team. Jason Jones had co-founded Bungie back in the 90s along with Alex Seropian. He had been a creative lead on nearly every title Bungie had ever released. He was a visionary, but not a natural leader. As remarked on by his colleagues, Jason was driven and could laser focus on any multitude of aspects of a game in development. But setting a vision, communicating and directing that vision to large groups of people, and managing the whirling circus that is a AAA game title, well, that wasn't his wheelhouse. And Bungie wasn't making renegade PC games with tight-knit groups of people anymore. They were making a massive sequel to one of the most significant games of the 21st century from one of the biggest corporations in the world. Microsoft's original idea was to launch Halo 2 with the Xbox Live service just a year after the release of Halo Combat Evolved and the Xbox. This was absurd. The team needed 2 years. Sure, 2 years. That sounds like plenty of time. A fall of 2003 window was targeted, and the team was off to the races. The team promptly dismantled everything about Halo and started from scratch, including a new graphics engine. This new powerful tech that used something called stencil lighting would make Halo 2 look like nothing ever before put on a console. Bungie leaned into Halo 2, and the sky was the limit. Alex Seropian, co-founder of the studio, could see the writing on the wall. The studio was a Halo studio now, and that's not something that interested him. Alex stepped away from Bungie in 2002 to seek out new ventures. He'd go on to found multiple new companies as well as work with Disney in their games division. But Bungie wasn't just losing a co-founder. He was an executive that understood how to manage people and manage a company. He knew how to communicate and navigate internal politics. He was the oil in the machine. And without his guidance, the internal friction within Bungie would heat up fast and the company would lose focus. Bungie never intended to be the Halo company, and soon they had not one, not two, but 3 different games in development separate from Halo 2. The Oni team that had spearheaded the original Halo's multiplayer had been promised the chance to work on their own game. That game was called Monster Hunter. Just not the Monster Hunter you know. Then there was Gypsum, a fantasy third-person action game. And finally, there was a game codenamed Phoenix, which as near as we can decipher was a combination of Minecraft and trebuchets. Despite attention being diverted to other games, the Halo 2 campaign was shaping up into an epic finale. The story's climax took place with Master Chief fighting side by side with the Dervish in a mind-blowing endgame that was meant to be the end of the Halo franchise. Yes, you heard me. The end of the franchise. Bungie fully intended for Halo 2 to be the last Halo game. Meanwhile, Jason Jones told the Halo 2 team that he would be splitting his time to go help the Phoenix project as the creative lead. When Marty O'Donnell and Joe Staten begged him to stay focused on Halo 2, he said he could do both. He couldn't. With Alex Seropian, the co-founder gone, and Jason Jones on another project entirely, Halo 2 was reduced to a skeleton crew. Jamie Gressimer had only shipped 1.5 games in his career, and he found himself planning all the missions and all the enemies. He had no experience leading a dev team in this way, and this dynamic was replicated across every department. A 1.5 years into the project, the game was moving backwards with no prospect of righting itself. But not everything was bad news. While the giant cool multiplayer mode with that open battlefield had made no progress of note in a year, the party game was coming along nicely. And the look of the new game was incredible. The decision to rebuild Halo with a new graphics engine was truly eye-popping. With E3 2003 fast approaching, the team created an S-tier demo featuring the new dynamic lighting and new gameplay elements. Bungie blew the doors off the Microsoft press event for E3 with a look at Master Chief airdropping into New Mombasa, a city on Earth in the midst of a Covenant invasion. The crowd lost their minds as Master Chief suddenly showed off his dual-wielding skills and hijacked vehicles from enemy units. It was jaw-dropping. Maybe too jaw-dropping. The demo was so impressive, some game journalists suspected it might not be real. Conspiracy theories about the demo being a canned movie began incubating among the press. As E3 2003 was wrapping up, the Halo 2 demo was in danger of being disqualified from awards consideration because enough members of the press simply didn't believe a live demo could look that good. Finally, in the waning hours of the show, a small group of press were given a final personal demonstration. This playthrough was less on rails than the official showing. The press was able to make suggestions for what Master Chief should do to prove the demo was a real game. Halo 2 passed with flying colors. But it was luck. The truth was, the game simply didn't work. With a wave of fan hype surging around the Halo sequel and the gaming press convinced, at least for the moment, that Halo 2 was real, Bungie realized the truth. Halo 2 would never run on the Xbox, and it was in trouble.
So far, the development cycle for Halo 2 is beat for beat exactly the same as how the XPlay relaunch came together. Theory.
And it's about to get even worse.
Which also tracks with how the XPlay relaunch came together.
I'm back after the break.
Five breadsticks for my triple treat. 3 layers deep, 10 Cinnabon mini rolls to eat. And the pizza plus another pizza.
The triple treat box, only from Pizza Hut.
At SteelSeries, we make gaming gear so you can be anything you want, except one thing: ordinary. Fight the biggest bad guy you can find. Create something nobody's seen before. Now that's beautiful. Why waste your ammo on this guy? He's so good at games he just nades himself to death. It's up to you how far you go, but whatever you do, go for glory.
What's the recipe for surprising the kids, treating yourself, and ditching dish duty? You're looking at it. Order your Pizza Hut faves like original pan, original stuffed crust, and more at pizzahut.com. No one out-pizzas the Hut.
Chucky will return.
Welcome home.
Until then, watch the hit series from the beginning, streaming now on Peacock.
Welcome back to XPlay. When we played Halo 2 back in the day, we had no idea the pain and tears that went into making it.
But now it's a car crash you can't unsee.
Enjoy the second part of our special deep dive into the secret history of Halo 2.
Bungie made the hard call to cancel literally everything else they were working on. Phoenix, Gypsum, and not Monster Hunter were all shuttered immediately. Jason Jones returned fully to Halo 2 and began rebuilding the campaign from square one along with Joe Staten and Paul Bertone, resetting 2 years of work. It's one of those horror stories of creative panic, like when Pixar flushed the first version of Toy Story 2 because it sucked and made a completely different movie in 9 months. I don't know what the old Toy Story 2 was about, but the new one, it's great. Jason, Joe, and Paul worked out the new Halo 2 campaign on literal whiteboards with no paper notes, Word docs, or hard drive backups. The entire single-player campaign existed only with dry erase marker for a time. One attack by an eraser, and they'd have to start over. Paul Bertone has these very whiteboards in his garage to this day. As the core creative team completely upended the plans for the campaign, the teams continued working on old stuff that was already obsolete. Everything was happening in the wrong order. Progress was being undone or exploded entirely. Halo 2 was already in the middle of a game development car crash, but there was no way to fix the process. The only way out was to press onwards. And if it crushed people, it would just have to crush people. This was playing out in the summer of 2003, fast approaching the fall 2003 launch date for Halo 2, a date Bungie could not meet. The team needed an extension. The release date for Halo 2 would need to be pushed back to 2004. Getting the game release pushed a year gave Bungie a fighting chance, but a gigantic part of the war had already been lost. All that was left was to admit that failure. The campaign was designed to end in a high-stakes battle with the Master Chief and the Dervish fighting side by side on top of the Ark. It was epic. A Death Star trench run with plasma grenades to end the Halo franchise with a bang. I wasn't kidding. Halo 2 was going to be the finale of the Halo saga, but the game mission didn't work. It wouldn't run on the retail Xbox software. In fact, the entire graphics engine and the scope of the levels were so far outside the range of what the Xbox could process, it was laughable. but mostly it was cryable. The game's finale was a mirage. So the team made the only decision they could, and it broke their hearts. They cut the entire third act of the campaign. There was no patching or hiding it. There was no slapping on a lazy boss fight to cover the gaping hole in the narrative. Halo 2 would simply release as an incomplete story. In fact, in the final mission, the player wouldn't even get to play as Master Chief, but would get a dervish level instead with a final Master Chief cutscene tacked onto the end. With the hard decisions made, the only thing left to do was deliver the best version of a bad outcome that they could. The final sprint to the finish line, in the words of design lead Paul Bertone, was a death march. Paul slept at the office for more days than he can remember, along with many others. He kenneled his dog for almost 2 months because he couldn't guarantee he'd make it home in time to feed him. Even in the midst of pushing human endurance, the team, especially leaders like Joe Staten and Marcus Leto, knew that no matter what they ended up delivering at this point, it was not what they'd set out to do. In a way, failure was inevitable, but they had to finish what they'd started no matter how many dreams and hopes had already died along the way. While the development team was throwing themselves into the meat grinder day after day to complete the game, in the outside world, gamers were beyond hyped. And Halo 2 was a mega entertainment event. It was the first video game to release a trailer in movie theaters, and part of that trailer featured the URL for the mysterious I Love Bees. The website presented as a beekeeper's homepage, but would soon reveal GPS coordinates paired with times. Those coordinates turned out to be payphones, and the timestamps were calls that fans needed to answer to peel back another layer. The messages were audio files from the future involving an AI that had crash-landed into the early 2000s website code of a Californian beekeeper. The ARG, or Augmented Reality game, was a cultural phenomena. Thousands of strangers around the country answered mysterious ringing payphones to help solve the mystery, including one fan who famously stood in the middle of a hurricane to answer an I Love Bees payphone call. When you're standing in a Burger King parking lot as Hurricane Francis, a storm that killed 49 people and reached peaks of 145-mile-an-hour winds, is thrashing Tampa, Florida to play along with a Halo 2 marketing campaign, that's a choice, and I salute you for it. I Love Bees was the first ARG to reach this level of mainstream impact. It wouldn't be topped in anticipation until 4 years later by the Dark Knight's own Why So Serious ARG. I Love Bees eventually unpacked a 10-hour audio drama about the Covenant attack on Earth that led right into the epic that was Halo 2. Back on the development side, the team was in the home stretch, but they faced one last curveball. The Covenant elite that gamers would play, and who was destined to team up with Master Chief, was called the Dervish. Right up until Microsoft got cold feet. A dervish is a figure from Islam, a sort of holy man stripped of material possessions, a warrior for God, set apart and blessed by Allah. The dervish had been a part of Halo 2 since almost the very beginning. The name had been approved long ago, all the game dialogue had already been recorded. But in the interim, the US had invaded Iraq, and both that war and the war in Afghanistan were raging. The Battle of Fallujah was fresh in everyone's memory, and Microsoft wanted to steer clear of anything that could be construed as stepping on any cultural toes or antagonizing a world religion we had a complicated relationship with. A new name was chosen at the last minute, The Arbiter. Every line of dialogue that included the old name was quickly re-recorded and swapped out, but there are still a few instances where you can hear Dervish if you know what to listen for. With one final push, Halo 2 finally went gold. Launch day arrived and players went nuts. Halo 2 sold 2.3 million copies in just 24 hours. The game release was a massive event and a smash hit for Xbox and Microsoft. But the shipping of Halo 2 was a horrible, near-fatal crash landing for Bungie as a development studio. The team's health, morale, and relationships were a smoking wreck. Everyone on the project had left everything they had on the field to deliver Halo 2 to the fans. And according to Joe Staten, Jason Jones vaporized. He walked away from not only Halo, but from the idea of making games entirely. Jason had nearly killed himself getting Halo 2 finished, along with many other team members who'd sacrificed a piece of themselves, some even losing marriages, in order to deliver the game. Jason couldn't do it again, and he left. Jason wouldn't return until Halo 3 was nearly finished, and even then, he had very little involvement. But he wasn't ready to walk away from building games just yet. In time, he began working on a game that would be a new destiny for Bungie. But that's a story for another video. In this video, while Halo 2 was breaking entertainment sales records, the team slept for a week, and when they surfaced, they realized the multiplayer they had released into the wild was broken. Jason Jones and Jamie Gressimer had been tweaking the weapon stats in the campaign in the very moments up until the game went gold. Unfortunately, those stats were shared across the campaign and multiplayer, and now multiplayer was completely unbalanced. The team was able to catch the error and fix it on Xbox Live before the gaming community at large had figured out the game was broken. Thank God for small miracles in a world before social media hysteria. If you'd like to see a modern social media rage mob, check out my review of Halo Infinite after you finish this video. Xbox Live had been active for a year before Halo 2 broke onto the scene. A lot of the technological kinks had been sorted out, but there wasn't a reason to play. That changed with the Halo 2 launch. The sequel was instantly the biggest, shiniest object on Xbox Live and would remain so for years. This is where maybe the greatest innovation of Halo 2 came into play. Max Hoberman had felt very strongly that the intimate feeling of playing with your friends on the couch was key to the success of the original Halo's multiplayer. To recreate that, Max and his team had developed something unique: the ability to party up with other friends online who are playing Halo 2 before you decided what mode or match you wanted to play. It's something that is so obvious to all modern gamers now, but in 2004, it was a revelation. Something else Halo 2 broke ground on was online matchmaking. It was the first major game to pair players of similar skill levels together into matches, rather than leaving the experience up to chance or sifting through lists of servers you needed a PhD to decipher. Halo 2 would play DJ to the online multiplayer experience for gamers. What was a radical departure for online play at the time quickly became the standard for every multiplayer experience moving forward. To prove Bungie had gotten it right, approximately 710 million hours of Halo 2 online matches were played in just the first 2 years. Halo 2 sparked a second revolution, this time in the esports world. StarCraft was a massive force in South Korea. Counter-Strike was a headliner in Europe, but the United States didn't have a true esports passion until Halo 2. Halo 2 was the first game to kick the esports door wide open for an American audience. The first nationally televised Major League Gaming event was a Halo 2 Pro Series. Halo 2 would remain the top-played game on Xbox Live until Gears of War dethroned it in 2006. The Halo 2 servers for the original Xbox stayed live for more than 5 years, finally being shuttered in 2010. But even at the end, there were a handful of fans who couldn't let go. A dozen players refused to log out of their Halo 2 games, continuing to play even after the servers were locked to new logins. For 3 weeks, the number of Renegade active players dwindled until just one player was keeping the Halo 2 server open by refusing to end his game. And then, maybe due to exhaustion or boredom, or the promise of access to the Halo Reach beta, that last player also ended their watch, and Halo 2 was no more. Halo 2 had a massive impact on the world of online multiplayer and on the trajectory of Bungie as a developer. Even with the mostly enthusiastic fan response to Halo 2, the team knew what they had released was a shell of the game it could have been. There was still an unfinished fight for Master Chief. Bungie needed to heal, and more importantly, they needed redemption, and they would find it or destroy themselves in the attempt.
What an incredible story. The Arbiter is still a great character.
Yeah, and after knowing how mutilated the Halo 2 campaign was, Halo Infinite doesn't seem that bad.
And now we whiplash from gaming's history to gaming's future.
We dive into the brand new reveal of Alan Wake 2 right after these messages.
I'm winning.
If you really want to win this, we should do the
Freeze-Drive Ritual! Silence! TBH, the elixir!
Elixir? I brought Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper is the elixir.
Hi, thanks for joining the Payne Motors quarterly earnings call. And now I'll turn you over to our new CEO.
The numbers last quarter were rough. Mea culpa. Well, not mea culpa, actually. Vea culpa. Let's sell the crap out of this car.
It looks like the car was assembled by a spider on LSD who also had bad taste.
It tested well.
American Auto premieres January 4th on NBC and watch 2 episodes now on Peacock.
Welcome back to XPlay. A new look at Alan Wake 2 was just revealed, and it's in our contracts, then we have to talk about it. So let's take a look.
I brought together a panel of esteemed colleagues, and we're going to discuss the significance that is Alan Wake 2. Of course, we didn't really learn much about the game from the trailer, so it really means we're going to be discussing Alan Wake, which I don't know if all of you have played it. I am now saying if there's one game that must be played, it is Alan Wake.
Yes.
It is the Alan Wake of games.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this is why I actually never played it. Every time I saw footage of Alan Wake, it was just him walking around with a flashlight,
That's
and I'm
it.
like,
Yep.
what's the point of this?
I think no one really knew what to do with it because it's very story-based. It's yes, you're using a flashlight to kind of, they're shadow creatures, and then once you flashlight them, you can shoot them. But the gameplay really is secondary to this fairly odd story that both has a Stephen King element, has a very heavy David Lynch. Yeah, about a writer who might be trapped in one of his own works and has to kind of write himself out of a situation and find his wife. It really is inventive. They then made Control, which is definitely one of my favorite games in the past 10 years.
What a treat. And the fact that, like, as you're on this journey, you realize that it is connected to Alan Wake just makes you that much more engaged.
It's even worth checking out probably the most curious game they ever made, which was Quantum Break. There have been indications that that is also part of this shared universe of Control
So
and
I played
Alan
the
Wake.
one bad game they made. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they're most famous for having made Max Payne.
Max Payne did something for me that I really appreciated. Is that it taught me that games can choose to have a specific art style and commit to said art style and convey it like a film would. I think it goes to show the strength that Remedy has when it comes to understanding tone and connectivity to their pieces. So I think they're going to do great. I'd love to. I want to see more, obviously.
They did talk about being a survival horror game, which I would not categorize the original Max Payne in that way.
So do you feel like it would benefit that it's changing to a horror survival versus
It
action?
makes a lot of sense. Alan Wake is just a writer. Like, he doesn't have skills. It's not like Control where he can, you can float and shoot and have guns made of your body or whatever. So it makes a lot of sense that it would be survival horror.
Alan Wake I thought was a very good game, but now I want to see what you can really do to ramp up actual gameplay and really make it a super polished game. The first one was fun, but they can do much better.
Absolutely.
Was that on our list of games to re-review?
Alan Wake?
No.
I think XPlay reviewed it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we gave it a 3 or something like that.
It's really simplistic gameplay, but it's the atmosphere, the world, the writing, the music, the character that draws you in.
That's fascinating that, like, you love the light and the darkness in this game, but then you don't like it in Kingdom Hearts. That's all it's about.
Alan Wake, the Kingdom Hearts of games.
And that's our show.
We've done almost 24 episodes at this point, which is way further than I thought we'd get.
2021 keeps surprising us.
Be sure to check us out on Twitch and YouTube too for our XPlay live show.
Plus extended versions of our reviews and deep dives of our segments.
See you soon.
Bye.